Been a while since I've talked about UFC, so what better than talking about a prospect coming up right now and currently has the potential to break way into the top 15 with his next fight. I'm, of course, talking about John Silva, the UFC featherweight. Super impressed by this dude's current run of fights. He's currently about to fight Bryce Mitchell here soon. Super excited by that. Happy to see him making this quick turnaround after kind of a decently long layoff in between the Drew Dober fight and his most recent fight last week against Melsik Bagdasaryan. Amazing performances from him. He starts his UFC career fighting Weston Wilson, and Weston Wilson is not really that good of a fighter, I'll be honest. I think he might have one win, but he's just not good. If he isn't already out of the UFC, he should be out of the UFC soon. So nothing crazy there, but I'll say this. He at least did what he's supposed to do to a fighter like Weston Wilson, because there's fighters that people will hype up, being like, this guy's going to be a future champion, and they would take Weston Wilson to, like, a decision, basically. And I think he did what he was supposed to against Weston Wilson. Then he comes back and he fights Charles Jourdain. And now, while he missed weight against Charles Jourdain, he still performed incredibly well in that fight. And I know a level of Charles Jourdain was able to get him to the ground, which, yeah, that is not the greatest sign, but Charles Jourdain is a pretty decent fighter. I think he's better than his record in titles, and he's a pretty good grappler, decent striker, pretty well-rounded in general, a little undersized for the division, but he TKOs him, and then, people were kind of angry at him because he missed weight and all that stuff, so people were kind of on the anti-John Silva train for a little bit, and then I believe it was the next week or 2 weeks, he steps up on short notice, up a weight class to fight Drew Dober, and beats him. Not only beats him, TKOs him in the third round by doctor stoppage after brutalizing Drew Dober. It was insane. It got everybody on the Drew Dober. It made Drew Dober an overnight talking point about this guy's gonna do crazy. He beat Drew Dober, who's one of those guys who's, he's never really been good enough to, I think, stay in the top 15, but he's just outside the top 15, so that was a good sign. And then this year, he comes back and he faces Melsik Bagdasaryan, who, while not the craziest of names, he kind of fell into this line of he's a good striker, very good striker. He's a former kickboxer, fought for the K1 title, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was 3-1 in the UFC at the time, now 3-2. But gets TKO'd and ran through basically by John Silva. And John Silva basically is telling the ref, hey man, you gotta stop this fight, man. He's out. And then, the ref is, he wants to see a body, so he follows up, but he follows up with freaking elbows to the body to spare this dude. It's insane. And then he makes a call out of Bryce Mitchell, and without going into detail, Bryce Mitchell had said some controversial things recently. So, a lot of people wanted to beat him up, but John Silva made the call out and was, reasonable enough to make that call out, and the fight's been made. And the fight's happening soon, which I'm super hyped for, because I think John Silva's going to win. I know, I think majority of people are picking John Silva, but I think a majority of people are picking John Silva because they don't like Bryce Mitchell, which I get, but also I think the people who are picking Bryce Mitchell also need to understand that Bryce Mitchell, to be fair, he's only lost to, he's only lost twice. He lost to Ilia Topuria, which, no shame there, all things considered, and he lost to Josh Emmett, which I get what people are saying, it takes Josh Emmett who's got crazy power. And yes, Josh Emmett's got crazy power. That was a brutal knockout, but mind you, Josh Emmett had really not gotten that many impressive KOs against any high-level opponents other than Bryce Mitchell. So I don't really, he's a powerful dude, but I also don't value, Josh Emmett's not this crazy good fighter, in my opinion. He's a good fighter, but he's not this crazy, constant knockout artist. So I think John Silva, with his power, his current rise, his momentum, Bryce Mitchell's also currently in that boat right now where he needs to perform good after all the things he said, because UFC are not going to do him any favors. And I think John Silva has the potential to beat him and then make his way into the top 15. which is insane. This dude is pure action. This dude is violence. This dude is so hyped up that people thought he was going to step up to fight freaking Justin Gaethje up a weight class again, which is insane. That will not happen, and it didn't happen. Fiziev that fight got made again, but the fact that that's how hyped this dude is right now. And now I don't want to get too hyperbolic about his potential right now. I know he's part of the Fighting Nerds, which are currently undefeated in the UFC, I believe. And John Silva is on a crazy good win streak in and outside of the UFC. He only has 2 losses, both by decision, 1 by split decision, very early in his career. So he's moved up past from that very much so. I think he has top 5 potential just on his pure aggression, his violence. I think he beats a lot of the guys on the top 10 at least. And he's only 28, mind you. This guy is still young. This guy hasn't hit his prime yet, which I'm excited to see. I hope he chooses his fights well to get in there. I think the Bryce Mitchell fight is a good fight because I don't think he's not going to get KO'd by Bryce Mitchell. He could get submitted, mind you, which is why his fight's interesting. And he could, get taken to a decision. But I also just think John Silva, his just aggression, that is going to do him good. Like, this guy is doing freaking, emotes on fucking fighters. Even though he's been taken down before, he's done fine on the ground. Like, once he's on the ground, he doesn't look too scared. I think he's going to be fine against Bryce Mitchell. I think he's going to TKO Bryce Mitchell in, the second or third round is my vote. But I'm pretty hyped up on this guy. I need a new prospect to be hyped about after Payne Talbot lost. Oh, God. But, yeah, that's going to be it. Bye.